Yeah, that definitely sounds way more fun, a lot wider. What's up and welcome. I want to talk to you today about a technique I use to get my bass guitar to gel and glue with my wider drums and guitar tracks in particular. I think this is a really fun way to make the bass track to sound more wide and kind of huge and massive, but also of reinforcing our guitar tone. You can get a lot more aggressive punch in your guitar tone if you use the bass to complement it, I think. So I can take you through the process step by step on how I like to do it, but I also want you to know kind of the general idea so that you can apply it and make your own version of this process in your own songs and mixes. And before we get started, if you are learning how to mix yourself or record yourself, check out the Standout Mixes resource down below in the description. There's a link that'll get you a free resource on how to get better mixes using the tools you already have, so you don't have to buy any extra stuff. All right, so let's get into this bass widening process. If you've seen other videos of mine or are already a subscriber, first off, thank you, appreciate that very much. But you may recognize this song because it is what I use in the intro music for all of my videos, essentially. It is a song called Shapeshifter by the band Daeodon. Totally go check them out, they're great. To be able to show you this process, I actually had to go back in time into earlier versions, so this isn't a final mix, but it still sounds pretty great. I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's just I'd already committed this earlier in the process than where we landed. So if you want to hear the final product, go to Spotify, check them out. They're great. Okay, so let's give you the lay of the land here. We've got a bass bus, so this holds all of my bass tracks right here. I've got my drums available because we're going to want to listen to those, and also all of my guitars as well in another folder track. We're focusing on the bass, so just so you know what's going on, for this song, we primarily use Submission Audio's Eurobass 2, I think. It's a great sounding MIDI bass. It worked for this genre. It was just a way that we could get incredibly in tune and consistent bass for this low tuned song. Really happy with the result. And here is what that sounds like. I had a dirty and a clean tone, so I rendered both and kind of ended on this blend. MIDI bass, of course, sounds a little too perfect, but once you mix it in with some real guitars and real drums, it all pays off, I think. So now, the process that we're getting into, though, is we want that bass to get pushed out to the sides a little bit more to dig into those guitars. So I'm going to solo out our bass again and show you this wide track I made. And I'll just show you what that sounds like, and then we'll get into how I made it sound like this. So this is just the wide track. So obviously very pushed out to the sides. I encourage you to throw on headphones if you really want to hear that, but it's totally stereo information. Whereas our main bass track sounds much more up the middle. So here's how we actually did it. I'll turn off all of our processing here on our bass wide track. The bass wide track is just a duplicate of what our main bass tone is, but we're applying other processing onto it. So here it is with all the plugins turned off. It should sound the same. Just a little quiet because it's going to be blended in. And then I've limited it. This is just because I want the sides to be more consistent. So it's not going to actually change how much it sounds that much. It looks dramatic, but it's really not. I could have gain staged this differently, but it's all fine. Now, here is where the first width comes into play. I'm using CLA Bass to do this. Actually a great plugin, I think. It's pretty quick and easy just to dial something in. I like its little distortion circuit. I've turned off everything other than our distortion and our pitch circuit. I've gone with growl, which I've dialed down a little bit, but that is going to give us a little bit more bite. And again, the idea here is that we're using this width bass track to reinforce our guitars. So if you think about that, we're really focused on mid-range and making that kind of distorted to blend in with the guitar tracks. So that's what the growl's there doing. And then the wide is kind of a coursey stereo spread effect that we're using to get that information pushed out to the sides. So here's how that sounds like. I'll turn that off and then on, off, on. So quite a bit of a transformation, but still not totally pushed out to the sides. That, by the way, is what I do a lot of the time, is this kind of middle ground. It's wide, but it's not uber wide as we're going to get. That's like a pretty common move for me in a mix. So if you're trying this out, that might kind of be what you're looking for actually right there, but I took it way further. After that stereo spread, I used Waves Doubler 2 And on this, I've pushed up our sides, hard left and hard right, as much as we can. And then I've just turned off our center channel. So it is only the fake sides that the waves doubler has made. And that's going to sound pretty bizarre, so have a listen. So off, and then on. So now we're getting super wide. Now we're gonna throw on FabFilter Pro Q3 at the very end. To be honest, this is something I actually usually do earlier. I use some kind of plugin, be it an EQ or something else, to filter out a lot of the low end, because I don't want all of that coming up the sides. I like that low end to be more mono-centric, and then the mid-range to be pushed out to the sides. But for whatever reason, I did it at the end on this song. So here it is. I've got a big low cut at 170, and then I am carving out some of that mid-range. That was probably just a reaction to how the top end of the space tone was reacting to the guitars. That is going to sound like this. Oh, and here I've made up the gain, finally. Not proper gain staging, but if it works, it works. All right, we've got an angry sounding thing. It doesn't really sound like a bass, but it's there. So now we got to blend that in with our actual bass tracks. So I'm going to bring this down to remember where we were, and we can bring it up back to that point so you can hear it coming in. So I'm fading it up. That sounds good. I'm going to go a little bit further. Too far. I dig that. That sounds like it's adding an aggression, it's adding a width, but still the center main bass tone still sounds really full to me. So digging that. Now we get to play with it with the other instruments and see how that all fits together. So we'll bring in drums and bass with the width off, and then I'll introduce the width. And I might mess with the level just to make sure we can really hear it for the example of this video. Bringing in the wide. So I'm actually turning it down a little because I thought it was too noticeable, but that's cool. Now let's bring in the guitars. Cool, and now let's play with the volume of the width so we can see what happens when we push it. See how when I pushed it, it almost made the guitars sound like they got louder or more exciting? That's kind of a cool thing you can do with this. It really is all about the guitar more than it's about the bass, this process, which is what's so cool about it. It just gives our sides such a big impact. And I could see myself using it to like highlight little riffs. Like let's try that in this little ending section here. There's little faster parts that I want to maybe accent with the bass track. So we could just turn our automation on and then listen to that, and I'll do it in real time. Here we go. Right, so those little do-dos are getting accented by the push of that side channel on the bass track rather than the guitars or rather than everything. It's just one way of doing it. I think it's pretty cool. Let me know if you like to use width on your bass tracks, or if you've never tried it before, please let me know how you like it. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's, just two plugins I use there. Ozone 9's Imager plugin is another great one by Isotope. Really, they all sound a little different, so it's just finding ones that you like and then experimenting from there. You might like having a narrower band you're doing it to, or leaving it wide open. There's tons of different ways to do this. But one last thing, I mentioned that I wanted to show you how I reinforced the low end that is kind of lost through this process, because you can run into kind of phasey sounding stuff because we're manipulating the stereo width of it so much. So you might find that you're losing some bottom end in your overall bass. I don't think it was too big of a problem in the case of this song, but it's something I've noticed before. But what you can do is reinforce it with a sine wave like this. So this is just a programmed sine wave. I'll turn it up for you. And we're using that to really beef up just a very consistent padded low end through the bass track. So obviously that's turned up crazy loud, but you can feel what it's doing. And now let me mute it. It's gone. Bring it back in. And that all comes together to give us this. There we go. That's awesome. I love this song so much. Such a fun jam, start to finish. Go check out Daeodon. They rock. And thank you, Daeodon, for letting me use your music for my theme music for this channel. Appreciate you all watching out there. And if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe and help this channel grow. Super appreciated. And don't forget to check out the Standout Mixes resource down below in the description. There's a link to that, as well as a free one-on-one coaching call with the self-recording band if you want to try that as well and level up your mixing or recording skills. That's the best resource out there. Thanks again. And if you're curious about the stereo widening stuff and want to learn more, check out my other video on that right here. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.